All right, we are grateful to have Merrill and Carolee Hales here. He served as the second counselor in our first temple presidency under President Butler and as temple recorder. And Sister Hales served as assistant matron. And they served from 2001 to 2004. And we are so grateful to have them join us here from their home. By the miracle of technology, they live in the Sacramento, California area, but they lived for a long time in the Omaha, Nebraska area. They still cheer for our Cornhuskers, which we're grateful for as well. We want to turn the time over to them for a little bit, and they're going to talk about those early days of the Winter Quarters Temple, preparing for the opening, the anticipation of the opening, the announcement, a little bit about they were also on the committee for the open house, and they can talk a little bit about serving during that time. And then, of course, the circumstances around the calling, the dedication, and maybe those early memories of the Winter Quarters Temple. So with that, I'll just let you, Merrill, and Carolee just kind of take it from there for a few minutes.
Well, we might start by saying that the last time we remember you, President Jacob, was when you were a young kid. A good kid, I might say, but still a young kid.
Checks in the mail for that comment. Absolutely.
You never know what the Lord's going to have in mind for us if we're willing. And the same goes with President Bartlett. Who would have thought that this kid that gave me such anxieties as a scoutmaster would someday be a state president and a temple or mission president, and now the temple president.
And now the temple president. That's right.
So we never know.
There's hope for all of us.
There's hope. But also, who would have ever thought that after 14 hours of driving, when Salt Lake was our temple, and many years later when Dallas was dedicated as a temple, we were down to 10 hours and then 9 hours with Denver, and then we just kept moving to closer with Chicago at 8 hours and St. Louis at 7 hours. And finally, we thought we'd never be alive by the time they get closer to us. But suddenly there we were at Florence, Nebraska, that's holy ground of the Mormon cemetery. And we had the temple, and there were still some of the areas that like Topeka who were still a few hours away, but right there next door to us, we had a temple. But it didn't come without a lot of preparation by people who in that area were doing their family history work and then going those distances that I just mentioned to do that work. And even those who couldn't go to the temple, just being worthy to hold a temple recommend and showing the Lord that we appreciated what he was doing. And I remember years before, or sometime before the temple was built, we had a very forthsightful, if that's a word, state president who organized work parties to help our next door neighbors, Catholic neighbors who were refurbishing their convent there. Years later, when the church applied for the temple, these same Catholic neighbors went before the city council and testified what a good neighbors we would be and what an asset to the community the temple would be. What a blessing that was for all the preparation that went into building that temple.
And a fun memory for us was when the temple was being built, those beautiful stained glass windows that were designed by Tom Holden, especially for winter quarters. They were delivered before they were actually ready to install them. And so they were being stored on the temple grounds there. And they asked for volunteers to come and guard those windows until they could actually be installed. And so Merrill and I volunteered to do an overnight shift. And we spent a cold, quiet night peacefully watching over those very precious windows. And during that time, we were able to think about all of the things that had happened in that sacred spot. And we just felt so grateful for the sacrifices that had been made there. And we marveled at the thought that a temple was now being built in that special place.
One of the memories that still comes to me when I think about those young people at the open house, kneeling down and putting those booties on people. What a tender moment of time that was for those people participating in that temple preparation.
Yes, and speaking of the open house, with it being in April, we were worried about the possibility of rain. And so Dave Edwards of Council Bluffs, he generously offered to buy 100 umbrellas for visitors to use walking between the visitor center and the temple. And so President and Sister Rowe, mission president at that time, they had a membership to Costco. And so I went with Sister Rowe to buy these umbrellas at Costco. And there we were standing in line with several carts full of umbrellas waiting to pay. And Sister Rowe, of course, had her missionary badge on. And a customer came up to us and he kind of looked at her badge and he looked at all those umbrellas and he said, "Excuse me, but do you know something we don't know?" Just kind of a fun Noah's Ark moment. But we did invite him to come to the temple open house.
Wonderful.
One of the things you'd asked me to think about, President, was some of the counsel that President Hinckley may have given us when he was there. There's two things that came to my mind when you asked that. The first one was that what President Hinckley told us that once the temple was dedicated, it would be a working temple, and we were to no longer conduct tours through the temple. And that stuck with us, and we didn't do that. We tried not to anyway. And one of the other things that he counseled us on was he said that when we were answering questions that the patrons may have, he said, as a temple presidency and the position that you hold, these people may tend to take everything you say right. And he says, you actually may be limiting their understanding of that question. He says, the Holy Ghost is the teacher in the temple, and you need to let the Holy Ghost do the teaching. And then he made a very humbling statement. He finished off by saying, besides, you just might be wrong. So that was humbling to us. That is President Hinckley's style. And speaking of his style, when those of who may have been in the first session of the dedication, when President Hinckley was exiting to go out to the cornerstone ceremony, may remember his taking his cane, and as he walked by waving his cane, as I don't know if it was in defiance of his not having to use that cane, or it was just his way of saying thank you for being here, and his style of it was President Hinckley all the way.
Actually, the day of the dedication was quite cool and overcast. And during the last session, just as the choir began to sing the Lord's Prayer, this huge bolt of lightning struck and thunderclap just right outside the window of the celestial room. And it literally lit up the whole room and startled us. And it seemed like a heavenly manifestation. But President Hinckley just didn't seem surprised. He just kind of took it in stride, and maybe because things like that are not totally uncommon in temple dedications, but we were completely awed by it. We remember that well.
Wow.
One of the things that those of you who were present that first year of the temple when it was open may remember some of the challenges that we had physically with things that happened perhaps with any opening, but particularly here. And for example, during that summer, the air conditioning went out, and we found out that as they built the temple, they had installed air conditioning that would handle only about 2/3 of what was needed for a Midwest summer. And so during that time that the air conditioning was out, fans became a fixture in the endowment rooms. And I wonder, well, just during that several weeks that it took to get it upgraded, but I wonder if the Lord might have been reminding us that, well, our forefathers, when they were in winter quarters, they didn't have air conditioning. But that didn't dampen their faith and their commitment to the gospel. But neither did it do ours. We were uncomfortable, but we were grateful, just grateful to have the temple there, even though we had sometimes it wasn't as pleasant as it is now as we are in the temple rooms.
Okay, one more really special memory that I'd like to talk about is that group of ordinance workers and office workers who we relied on as we began work in the temple. We loved them. They were our friends. They were the people who rode on those red-eye buses to other temples, and now we were serving together in our winter quarters temple. It was just amazing. We felt so blessed to be serving with these good people, and their dedication was inspiring.
You mentioned that I was the recorder of the temple, but really the people who did the work there was Sister Karen Ludlow and Joan Schoaf, the secretary of the temple, and they were the ones that we should thank for all of that work. But there we were. Dedication came. The temple, the servant of the Lord, a prophet of the Lord, had come to dedicate his temple to the glory of our Father. And what a glorious day it was that day. But you know, even more glorious than that day was the days and the weeks and the months that followed as faithful saints came to the temple just to show the Lord. They filled the temple beyond capacity, just showing the Lord their dedication and thankfulness to him, for gratitude for bringing the temple so close to us. And I've thought that perhaps we, like Oliver Cowdery, when he was talking about the early days of the restoration, we could also say those were days never to be forgotten. We were so grateful to have the temple there, but now we have the responsibility and the challenge to keep the temples full. And perhaps when we're able to do that again, to show the Lord our gratitude for not only the Winter Quarters Temple, but the temples throughout the world where we can go and show our thankfulness to be able to participate in this great work of redemption. And so we're so grateful to you, President, for inviting us to be part of this dedication. We're grateful to be able to be with you, even though it's virtually, and so thankful for the time that we had and the memories that we have of that temple. We could spend hours with, but we'll keep it to 10 minutes.
We love the Winter Quarters Temple.
Well, thank you to both of you for your time and for your service and for all that you did to share with us of your spirits and your experiences and your memories. We've truly been edified by them, and we look forward to taking that counsel and returning to the temple once more. So thank you to both of you, and
thank you.
We wish you the best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.